Hello, listeners. This is Janine
and Kristen
from Henrico Casa. You are listening to our podcast, Vigilant Voices. Living life every day. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Vigilant Voices, our podcast from Henrico Casa. We are glad to have you listening with us today.
Yes, we love these conversations because it always feels like we're connecting with you, listener, knowing that you, like us, want to know more about the challenges facing children and families so that together we can ensure no child faces continued abuse, neglect, or trauma.
And in our episodes this month, we have decided to really focus on strengthening family ties.
Yep.
And so last episode, we talked very specifically about kinship care. Mm-hmm. And just as a quick reminder, this is where or when a family member steps in to care for a child who may no longer be able or really can't live with their family of origin.
Right. And today we want to kind of continue that family talk to talk about reunification, mm-hmm. which is another outcome where a child is able to be cared for by their family. Specifically, they're able to return to their family of origin or whoever was originally caring for them.
Right.
And they're returning to them for the long term.
That's right. So for some context, when a child enters foster care or another type of out-of-home placement, there's one outcome that and we'll put the caveat when it's safe and when it is deemed in that child's best interest that we really do hope for more than any other.
Yes.
And that is what we call reunification with that biological family. And usually it's a parent.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And I think it's too shallow to say reunification is just about a child going back to live with their parents.
Right.
Because there's so much more to it than that. Reunification is really about making sure that a child's return is safe, stable, and lasting.
Yeah.
And so we want children to be going home to an environment where they can thrive, not just like throwing them back to a survival mindset.
Exactly. And the goal from a legal perspective, and really then the Department of Social Services is looking at this too, is really to always address the issues that led to the child's removal. And what we call that, the burden, is that we need to see substantial remediation, right?
Okay.
So the family has to substantially remedy the situation. And that's looking to, how have we healed or strengthened the situation that brought that child into, let's say, foster care in the first place. But we're also then looking to ensure that if we are returning them home, that there will not be the scenario in which that child has to be removed again somewhere down the road.
Exactly. And that leads right into the Casa case story I want to share today. Okay. This is the story of two siblings who we'll call Sam and Steven. And they were just toddlers when they were removed from their home and sent to live with a relative. Mm-hmm. They had to leave their biological parents because their father was abusive towards their mother. And there were growing fears for the children's safety. Mm-hmm.
So was the long-term goal for the children to live with this relative as like a formal kinship care arrangement?
No. So this relative stepped up for the short term, but was not able to commit to caring for the children long term.
Okay.
So the hope was that the children would be able to return to their biological mother if and when she was able to offer a safe living environment, right?
And to me, this sounds like it might be right around the time when CASA should be getting involved in this type of case.
Yes, it is. And I will tell you more at the end of the episode.
All right. So before we get to that, I guess let's maybe dive in a little bit deeper into this idea or concept of reunification.
Sure.
So from the Department of Social Services point of view, the process towards reunification starts with an assessment in some ways. And that could be for risk, for safety, lots of different scenarios. Sure. But our child welfare professionals are looking closely at the family's needs, but also their strengths.
Right.
So, what challenges caused the separation or the need for the removal?
Yeah.
But maybe what is going well or what's working that we could build upon?
Sure. Right? And, maybe most importantly, what still needs to change before it's safe for the child to return home.
Yes. And so then the department tries to be really transparent with the families to develop what we call a formal service plan.
Okay.
And that plan is completely unique to each family. And it then lays out all of the asks for the family to complete in order to try to determine, then, is it safe for the child to return home?
Right.
So that could look like engaging in counseling, or taking parenting classes, or engaging in mental health support or substance use treatment, looking to find housing or secure employment. So lots of different things, but it's a very clearly laid out plan.
Yeah, and let's be sure to note that none of this happens in isolation, right? The family isn't just given a plan and sent off to follow it, right? Like, we see reunification as truly a team effort. And so parents, the temporary caregivers, social workers, attorneys, service providers, they all have a role to play, as do CASA advocates.
Absolutely. And, CASA's role in this process is special. I mean, our advocates get to know the child really well, understand the child's needs, as well as maybe any fears or concerns or anxieties that they might have.
Yeah.
But the real intention is for our advocates ensure that children's voices are heard, but not always just in court. And this would be a scenario in which we can bring that voice forward in what we call family planning meetings with the Department of Social Services.
Yeah, definitely. And advocates also help monitor how a reunification plan is going. They're checking in with the family on milestones. They're making sure progress is real and consistent. And they're always keeping safety as their top priority.
Absolutely. And I think we just need to be really clear is that safety is non-negotiable.
100%.
Right. So no matter how much we are rooting or would like for that child to be with or return to their family, really it can only happen if it is deemed safe for them to be there. And so that's where that ongoing monitoring and support, even after a child returns home, but even up until then, is super, super crucial.
Yeah. And I mean, we can't say enough that this ongoing support is in fact critical. Imagine a parent who's maybe worked hard to overcome substance use. They've completed counseling. They've learned new parenting strategies. That progress is incredible, but without continued encouragement or access to more resources, there could be setbacks. Really, we talk about this all the time, but any kind of stress can in fact lead to a setback.
Right. And this is then where community plays a huge role. And, reunification, if and when that happens, it really doesn't mean that then the journey is just over.
Right.
It's really rebuilding, and it's a whole new chapter. And so that's when families really need supportive neighbors and friends, teachers, members of faith communities, other service providers to really help keep that home stable and that progress continuing.
Right. And they also really need encouragers, right? We talk about this so much in our work at CASA, but families who've been through the child welfare system may carry shame, sometimes fear. Yeah. They could very well be exhausted, right? And so having someone in your corner saying, we believe in you, we see the progress you've made, you can do this, just makes a world of difference.
Yeah, and I think that it's also a piece of where we can't make people do something, but we can encourage them to see the benefit of doing something.
Sure.
And so with this discussion on reunification, I do think it's important to remember that that process still can be very emotional for the kids
even if
and
it's
the
what
children.
They wanted. Yeah,
totally.
Big emotion.
Because they may be excited or express that is what their desire was and it's deemed best, but there could also be some anxieties around that and nerves around that. Missing that foster parent or relative that they were living with who was providing that safety and stability. But I think the good news is that where CASA comes in, and we can also help communicate and talk with the children to help for that transition, can answer questions or reassure them and make sure that their feelings are part of the conversation that, again, we can bring forward. Yeah.
Okay. So funny you say that because, boy, Sam and Steve's CASA advocate is most definitely answering questions for those littles.
Very cute.
So a reminder kind of back to this case story, their mom fled the domestic violence situation that they were all in. And she's now working on rebuilding her own life, right? And that's with the hopes of regaining custody of the boys.
Sure.
And so their questions are just nonstop. They want to know when they're going to see their mom, what the new house will look like, if they'll have a pet, all the details.
Right. And so, does the advocate have answers to all of those questions? I can totally see the kids just constantly,
They're just peppering, right? And then unfortunately not yet, right? But things are moving in the right direction. The boy's mom faced so many challenges when she left their father. She was unemployed.
Yeah.
She was homeless because when she left that situation, she lost her home, right? And she didn't have a credit history. But she's been addressing the obstacles kind of one at a time. And she's now secured a home and a job.
Well, and I know that, CASA is going to continue to work with this family and on this case while it's open to continue strengthening the family to ensure that reunification is successful.
Right. And, when reunification works well, it's incredibly rewarding. You see children thriving, you see relationships mended, and families can come out stronger than they were before,
right.
But it does take commitment from absolutely everyone involved.
Right. So, listener, if you're listening and wondering how you might be able to help, one way is to get involved with organizations like CASA that walk alongside and work with families and children through reunification.
Yep. But outside of organizations like ours, just as, a kind, caring human being, you can offer practical help to families around you, things like meals or childcare, tutoring.
Yeah. And I think, again, I feel like we can't stress enough that many stressors that people see every day end up really being risk factors for abuse and neglect.
Right.
So anything that we can do to prevent or lessen stress in families is really also decreasing the risk of potential maltreatment toward the children in those homes.
Yeah. And so, listener, most importantly, and gosh, we say this all of the time, we ask you to be an encourager. Positive reinforcement builds confidence and really keeps families moving forward.
And truly, family reunification, I think, is proof that change is possible and that children can return home to safety, security, and love when we are all, as a system and a community, working together.
Yeah. So, listener, thank you for being one of the vigilant voices working with us. It truly takes a village. Thank you for listening to Vigilant Voices, Henrico Casa's new podcast. We have a vision for all children to live in safe, healthy homes. You can help us make that happen. Tell a friend about our podcast and find us on social media.
I believe in the better days.